Hello, everybody, and welcome to Worship Guitar Show number 40. Great to see you. Pleasure to be here. If you'd be so kind as to drop a little note in the chat, let us know where you're coming from. And tonight's topic is one that is near and dear, I think, to all of our hearts. It has to do with this concept of GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. As some of you might have heard me say recently, at the end of the year, last year, what I did was I kind of spent some money on gear such that I could counter it against my earnings for the year. As a professional musician, you're able to do that. If you are in professional, quote unquote, ministry life, you have some of those same sorts of options depending on what it is that you do in ministry. Considering you're watching the Worship Guitar Show, one would argue that that is within, the framework of a tax plan. Operative word being plan. The real operative word being GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. And so there are a number of things that I go into a gear buying search that I just have learned after years and years and years and years of making largely good purchases, some really mediocre purchases, and generally speaking, no really, really, really bad purchases. But you may have heard me say this before. All you have to do is go to Craigslist and take a look at some of the stuff that's on there, and you begin to realize, I'm going to bring my volume down a little bit, that you find that people have made lots and lots and lots and lots of bad gear decisions. The one thing I'm going to say to you, and I learned this when I made my first record, is you can only spend $1 once. Yes, in theory, if you buy something, you can flip it, but for all the time and the energy it takes to buy something, then kind of put it on, Reverb, Craigslist, wherever it is you're going to sell it. There's a lot involved in the energy that goes into that, and quite often you end up losing money in most cases. All right, so the thing is that what's neat is because I'm so close to this process, I wanted to kind of share my tips and insights around that. But the other thing I want to do is briefly poke into the chat here and make sure that everything is working well. That's good. Hello to everybody on Facebook. And I'm going to believe, and let's hope that this is, and there may be a moment here where we just get a little bit of a feedback loop, but that will go shortly. Actually, I don't need to do that to do what I need to do here. So, all right, first of all, we're going to go to some of my favorite places. There we go. Good. Thanks for saying hi. There we go in the comments. Hello, Miss Melissa Doppler. All right, let's do this. Move this over here a little bit. Joe Lewis Band, welcome aboard. Good evening to you. Rick Costa. Rick, thank you so much. I love you, dude. You know that. Cool shirt. Thank you very much. I'm queen for a day. Rick, thanks again. Ditto, Columbia, Missouri. Awesome. Well, welcome aboard. Boom. Podgo, and it is simple to use and sounds great, and it sounds amazing. To me, one of the best pieces of gear still in 2020. Absolutely. I'm going to be doing some presets around that. So boom. Leighton, great to see you. Calgary, how'd I do on the pronunciation there? I love Canada and I love Canadians because they're awesome. Okay, so I am not able to go directly and see the chat coming in. Chris, for this show, I don't have the affiliate links on this show yet. They're going to be a different set pointing to different places. All right. Well, first of all, feel free to pepper me with your questions, but what I really want to make sure I do without fail is also kind of get through to the stuff that I want to do. Now, as I open up, there we go. We've got comments. Good. I can see the feed here. First of all, Craig Riley, great to see you. Welcome aboard. Steve McFarland, Connecticut. Hello. Brett, hello. This is a cool topic. We're going to have so much fun. I just wrote a book about this in regards to beginner and intermediate players buying a guitar. Love it. Okay. Oh, boy, we're going to go there. Hello, Doug. Forrest again. Melissa, Brett. Yes. Okay. So Brett's comment here, I can't bring it in because of how it's connected, but Brett commenting that yes, many people really don't know how to go about buying a guitar slash gear and end up having a bad experience with learning to play. So it's a funny thing, I'm actually. So here's the deal: nobody is safe in this broadcast. That is to say, I'm going to say all the places I've had great experiences, and I'm going to say all the places that I've had bad experiences. Collectively, the vast majority of the best experiences have been on Reverb as of late, because that's where I've been buying most of my gear. Sweetwater, where the customer service and selection gear is great. And once again, I was aware of why pretty much Reverb just basically massacred eBay, because eBay just can't help themselves but kind of suck, which is really, really, really too bad. Craigslist, if you're extremely discerning, can be a great place to buy gear. Not so great on the selling side of things. Okay, so I do want to fess up and say a couple of things. Last year was a hard year for a bunch of people. So if I talk about the gear that I bought last year, let me be really clear that I am aware of the sensitivity around this. Tonight's goal is to kind of go, look, we're heading into a new era. Things are going to be better. So please understand that I'm not kind of going, well, I bought this gear last year like just being an insensitive pig. Because that's not who I am, and that's not my heart. Okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, at the end of last year, I knew that there was going to be a bunch of tax that I was going to need to pay. And so I was pretty aggressive in the gear that I went and bought. And I finally decided to buy some gear in particular that that I knew I had kind of one opportunity. Basically, when my dad passed away, I inherited a house that he had built, and we sold it at the end of last year. And to protect myself against some of the tax that we're going to be paying this year, I had the opportunity as a professional musician to leverage some of the earnings from the house against buying musical gear. And so taxable earnings, I should say, from the value from where it was assessed and the selling price. So I went out and I bought a couple of pieces of gear that I had some very specific things that I want. So the first thing I'm going to say is this: as you begin to proverbially look at the swimming pool and put your toe in, it's really easy with gas to get lightheaded, as opposed to, let me make the best decision I can possibly make. That comes down to a couple of things. One, do I have to buy it new? Two, if I don't have to buy it new, what am I willing to do to get the maximum value? Does that mean I want to get it for the lowest possible price and I'm willing to wait to get it? Do I want a medium price, or do I want it as quickly as possible? I have a tendency to be at the upper end of it, but again, with what was happening at the end of last year, literally we sold the property in the last couple of weeks of December. I had a very small window, but I knew pretty much everything that I wanted to get. And so in so doing, one of the things that I've always wanted is a vintage AC30. I was born, I'm just going to say it, I was born in 1964. That's a 1964 AC30 top boost. And so here is the danger about buying vintage gear. So I don't actually want to spend the whole time talking about vintage gear, because that's not the point. But this is true of any piece of gear, is it's really easy to go into it and become an instant expert, or believe that you've studied enough. I see some. I can see the main comments, and then they also pop up small on my screen here, and they always make me laugh. So the thing is that there are a lot of things. A vintage piece of gear has a lot of the same elements about a regular piece of gear. One of the other things that I did was I bought an ES339. I actually bought that this year. Or excuse me, an ES335. My buddy Mason had loaned me his 335, and I just kind of lost my mind. I'm actually going to start with the 335, because this is actually a great example of everybody looking for a guitar. Because this was, as I was kind of sitting there going through my guitar, things that I do when I test a guitar. Actually, I had a chance to pick it up in person. This is kind of where I'm going to back up a step. The idea is like, how immediate does it need to be? Mason needed his guitar back, and I was on Reverb, and I looked at 100 guitars, because Mason had this lovely semi-vintage guitar that I was not going to be able to afford to buy per the chairwoman of the board, which is fine. So then I was like, okay, well, what is my price point? What model do I want? Knowing really jack about Gibsons, other than the fact that 2 NAMM shows ago, Bruce Adolph, publisher of Worship Musician, and I were able to go to the Gibson booth, and I was like, these new Gibsons are great. And so I was like, okay, so there was a 2019 ES335, I'm just going to say it, for $1,900 on Craigslist, which is about $600 below market on Reverb. So immediately I go, my like suspicion antennae went up, and I'm just kind of like, and the guy, was just like, well, can you meet now? And everything was urgent. So I was like, then I'm like, okay, can I say no, I'm not going to say that word. It wasn't that bad, but it could have been offensive to some. So like the antenna are up, and I'm just like, the first thing that I did was I'm like, you know what? I've spent a lot of time looking at these. I think this is legit, but I'm going to reach out to Bruce Adolph, and Bruce is going to reach out to Joe Riggio, because these are 2 guys that I know if I know this much, they know that much. And they're going to be able to advise me. And so Bruce very kindly reached out to Joe. I basically had the 2 of them on the phone while I'm in the car after having sent them the listing on Craigslist, going to check the thing out so they can look to see if it's a Gibson. That is to say, a Chinese Gibson. That is to say, a fake. And so the thing is that I remember being at Music Messe, which is basically NAMM in Europe, at the Orange booth. This guy came up and he was telling me about this 50 Strat that he'd bought, and I'm like, I just didn't have heart to tell him. I was like, that's not a 50 Strat, and he paid like bucks. Okay, so here's the deal: if it seems like too good a deal, it is. 2, when you're buying vintage gear, just keep in mind that I would say 25%, which is actually rich, but I would say somewhere between 10 and 25% of the time, you're not really getting everything you think you're getting. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of this, and we're going to go real world. So hang on a second. I need to pull this up right here, and hopefully everything's going to go to the right place. No, it didn't. Why aren't you going to Safari? Hang on. Give me just one moment. I had all this set up till the whole internet blew up on me. By the way, I'm going to tell you kind of what happened in the midst of all that insanity, is that I post to 2 different channels that I stream on, and they're both associated with different Google accounts for YouTube. And for whatever reason, my Restream application, when I'm using Safari, has started posting to the wrong one. So only if you're going to stream, just use Chrome. I've really tried to give Safari every break I possibly can, because if you think about the processing power integration on a Mac, you think, okay, I want to give these guys an opportunity. But all right, so now that we're going to be over here in the right application. All right, so let me tell you that this is not a guitar that was on my affordability, but this is a classic example, and all you worship folks are going to love this. 1959 ES345. So the thing about this is it's $190,000, but if you look at it, it's got, of course, what we would classically call, let me get over to the right window here, it's called what we would classically call all that case candy. Let me make sure this is broadcasting through. Yeah, there we go. I mean, look at all that stuff. That's the stuff that dreams are made of. And so that's all the right stuff. And, again, as you look at an instrument like this, I don't know how vintagey you go. Oh, okay. So immediately we're going to go 2 things. So I haven't actually dug in here, but Bruce already spotted this. So it was not, it either was a factory original Bigsby that somebody then put a traditional stop, 2-piece bridge and tail piece on, or some sort of stuff. So for $190,000, this business right here, I'm not buying it. Now, it does actually have, it's great that it's got the case candy. I'm not even going to bother. Actually, no, this is a great example. So they claim that underneath these guys, because since it's 59, those should be actual true PAFs, and they're claiming what they call creams. So let's just head down here, and this is where this is where you begin to sniff for the BS. So 1959 ES 345 factory black Bigsby. 59 FON number shipped late 59. No issue or problems of any kind. Near mint double white PAF with all the hang tags and brown case. Now, immediately my BS sniffer comes up because I'm like, well, what the heck is this business with these two doweling holes that are there? Bruce could tell you more about that, but the point being is I'm immediately like, that's not dead near mint, ladies and gentlemen. So immediately the BS factor is up. All right, now my other, let's see, where is this? Okay, heading back to this, and I'm going to jump in now, and I'm going to take a look at this, and we're over here, hello, and I'm going to gather some feedback here. All right, okay, so hang on just a second. Oh, wow. Bought a Podgo and sold my Helix LT. Oh, that's great. That's great. I love it. All right. Let me just do this a little bit. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is some mighty fine advice. So this is the thing when I mentioned kind of at the beginning of all of this is like, look, you got to decide which buyer you're going to be going into this. And I'm just going to tell you, just so you know, if you're the excited buyer, at one point or another, like me this past Sunday, you're going to get bit. So I'm going to tell you my eBay story. And let me see if I can actually get over to, well, I don't have to walk you through it. So one of the amps, I'm going to be doing a bunch of demos around a range of different types of gear. One of the amps that I've got my sights on is one that is really hard to find. It's a Mesa Boogie Mark II C+. Like that is the Metallica, that's the most iconic metal amp ever. And that's my opinion, but really pretty much it is. And they're deathly hard to find. Now, as it turns out, and so, all right, so this is a great story because I want to give you an idea about this process. And even after all the research that I did and all the preparation, I knew I was going in hot because I've been looking for one of these for 6 weeks. So, classic example, when you start to get impatient, you do stupid stuff. So I'm going to tell you the stupid thing to do on eBay, having done it. I knew what I wanted. The listing comes up. I'm like, oh my word. It's a Mark II C++. He's going on and blah, blah, blah. And, this and that and that and this. Now they actually, Rick, thank you. And they actually put the serial number in there because they fully believed it was a Mark II C++. And so I was like, if I don't buy this, something to do. So two things that you always want to look out for. One, and just like call me stupid. And I looked at this 0 transaction records. You do have buyer protection on eBay. But number two, I went over and saw, I was like, well, are they selling anything? Right? Because generally, if they're a quote-unquote ruser, that is to say they're going to try and reel you in, they'll have some other stuff that they're going to try and get a couple of people if they possibly can and have some scam worked out. So they just had some really cheap mixing board and some other junk that kind of was like, you know what? They're just selling some stuff. So I'm like, you know what? They've got some listed. They don't have any feedback. They've been on here since a couple of years. They don't have negative feedback, but they've been there, and they've got some listings. So I'm like, other than this particular amp, it was like $2,800, which are not cheap. But I was like, if I don't buy this thing, I've been looking for flipping. Yeah, as Rick Costa said, 0 transactions, no good. But I kind of, again, they had some other stuff listed, and there is some buyer protection. Because I was like, I haven't seen one of these come up. And everybody's taking these Mark IIIs and modifying them back. And it's just like, again, if you're looking to spend the money, spend it once. So I'm like, boom. So they happen to have the serial number. This is where the smarts in reverse of getting too excited go. So we happen to have the serial number in there. I'm like, 15,000 above, the beginning of Mark III. So I've emailed this guy. I got on the phone to eBay. I'm like, I'm doing everything again. I want to cancel this transaction. eBay's like, yeah, in 30 days you get money back. And I'm like, and so, so basically this guy, I've messaged him a bunch of times. eBay messaged him. So he has relisted it. So he's not going to get my money. I'm not going to get whatevered. But the whole point is the experience was if he'd actually, what he did is he saw my message, never replied to my second message, printed out a label even after seeing my message in there. And it just happened to be, that he, and then eBay's like, well, we can't do a cancellation. Now he's printed out a label. He hadn't shipped it yet. And now he's relisted it as a Mark III, but he never replied to me. eBay never replied to me. I'm just like, you know what? Unless I absolutely have to, eBay's not it. Now, that said, the Marshall cabinet, eBay. So that cabinet right there is a lovely, 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 lovely 1967 Marshall cabinet. And it's got 1967 Pulsonic cone Celestion greenbacks. It's kind of like the holy grail. Pulsonic cone, Pulsonic bass resonance cone. It's like the cabinet of cabinets. And so there is a website called Bygone Tones that, as I was shopping for cabinets, and before I found that one, because I really wanted to buy a pinstripe, because years ago when I was studying with Joe Satriani at the store that I used to study with him, and then we shared when we kind of were alternating teaching days, I walk in one day and there's a full pinstripe 67 stack, pristine. I would just remember looking at that going, oh. And the guy that owned the store had this great thing where he would send vintage gear over to Japan, make a fortune for it, and then he would exchange that for gray market synthesizers. Like when the DX7 first came out, he had it before the local Yamaha dealer did, which of course they weren't very happy about it. They were 100 volts, so you had to use a little kind of transformer type of deal. But he had them first. And they, so in any case, so the point being, I just remember seeing that and just going, oh, it just, there's something about, and it's kind of like the Hendrix, Clapton, it's the cabinet. And so, and it sounds amazing. But the deal is, in that world, there's, first of all, a lot of disinformation, in that people say it's this, they think it's that, sometimes, and sometimes they're just completely full of it, and sometimes they got burned and they're just going to flip it around to somebody else. So the point being is that and Lincoln Brewster is actually has become I'll just say a good friend. As a matter of fact, we've got a little something coming up, and I will be telling you about it a little bit later on in the show. Actually, I'm going to tell you about it now. If you happen to be looking for something to do on January 22nd at 10 a.m. Pacific time, you should check out our buddy Lincoln Brewster, because Worship Musician is going to be putting on what we call the Worship Musician Chapel, and it's part of a series of events we're doing with NAMM. And let's see, let me get back over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a little bit of information here. Let's see if I can do this without breaking the internet again. All right, there we go. And how big is this going to be? I have no idea what this is going to look like, so bear with me. How about going with a font that's a little bit less... all right, so there we go. We want that. And how about that? There we go. That's more like it. Okay, here we go. And that's absolutely tiny if you're on a mobile device. So the good news is that was not as small as as bad as I had worst feared. All right, let's try it. There we go. Okay, so first of all, there's a series of steps here. We've got a couple of different events. First of all, we have the Worship Musician Chapel with Lincoln Brewster, and we're hosting that event. It's basically a pre-recorded event with Lincoln, but it's awesome. So that's going to be on Friday at 10 a.m. I am also hosting. It will be pre-recorded, but if you are into worship and technology and want to know some more stuff, it's basically Technology for Houses of Worship. We're talking about technology and creativity, and it's going to be me basically hosting a masterclass with Christian Ponsford from Multitracks, Chris Griffin from Church of the Highlands, and Todd Elliott from Philo. Basically, Philo is first and last out. It's basically for technical artists, as they call them, which I love, which basically is all the tech folks. And then the sign up is pretty straightforward. The registration process, and I'm going to grab that URL so it's visible right here. It's free. And we love free. Let me just let me do a separate overlay. Are they going to let me do a separate overlay? Yeah. Here we go. And I'm going to make this one nice and bigger-roony. So you can go right here and register for free. Awesome. So that's going to be great. I'm going to leave that up over my face for a minute while I continue to yak, just so you can gather all that. I realize if you're on a mobile device, that's probably really small, but I can put that. We are going to have that all over worship musician social media. But again, attend.believeinmusic.tv/register. All right, so we're super excited about this. So Lincoln is a Marshall Plexi guy. So he was another person that I spent a lot of time on the phone with. And this is one of the things about this process. Again, the worst thing you can do is rabbit trail and become an instant expert and not reach out to the people around you who've spent way more time studying this stuff. So I was on the phone with Lincoln a lot, and he really knows about the speakers, and so he actually got a buddy of his on the phone and said, "Hey, this cabinet that Doppler's looking at, is that a good deal?" And his buddy said, "Buy it." And that was it. And so that was an amazing transaction. But the deal is, the guy that I bought it from had 22,000 sales on eBay, had a 100% rating, and has been in the business forever. So I'm like, and there is a certain amount for those of us that are gear collectors. You can tell somebody that's legit most of the time than somebody's a fake. 22,000 sales, 100% rating, fair amount of confidence factor that they're the real deal. I'm taking this down. Okay, so let me head over to the chat for just a quick second. I love that. Okay, and that's the whole thing, Alan. Oh, I like the way that font's gone yellow here. I like that a lot. And that's the thing is like there are. Okay, let's back up a couple more steps here. One, know what type of buyer you're going to be going into the whole thing. If you're a buyer that's in a hurry, do everything you can to take a breath. And then buy. Because if you got to have it, you got to have it. But just know that you're basically 25% potential that you're going to end up with not what you want. Like I spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks researching before I actually kind of came across that cabinet. I found one. All right, so let's back up a step and talk about all the places I go to look for whatever it is that we're looking. 1, reverb. 2, if it's used, that is, I will look on Craigslist. 3, eBay. 4, the used section in Guitar Center. I'm going to actually have to open that puppy up because pretty much, generally speaking, and I hate to say this because my friends at Guitar Center will hate me for this, but Guitar Center is basically where if anybody's going to try and fill in the blank with some really unsavory word, they're going to take that piece of gear down to Guitar Center. And so, I bought a Mesa Boogie cabinet from Guitar Center. Sure enough, I opened it up. They've stuck some lame speakers, and I'm like, take it back. But there is a lot of great potential used gear you can just get at Guitar Center. It's just usually, it's kind of like the used car parking lot, or when you're trading your car and you haven't been doing the maintenance. That's kind of the Guitar Center gear for the most part. Not always, but it's kind of like that. So just kind of, if you want to buy a car that you're just going to have to keep fixing stuff on, just go buy your gear at Guitar Center used. That's just kind of, you just know that that's what people are thinking. I'm dumping it at Guitar Center. There are people that will trade in, and there are people that are just so desperate for money that they need to just have the money. All right, let's get this to Craigslist. This is the thing about, I want to give you some good advice about Craigslist as being a courteous buyer. It's a great place to get a great deal if you're smart and you're not too excited. The ES, I saved myself $600. That's like, my math is terrible, but I saved 20% off of the same guitar, and I could literally turn around tonight and sell that same guitar for $500 above what I paid for it. But this is the thing, is that I knew what I wanted. I knew approximately how much money I was willing to spend. And when I found it for $600 less, I'm like, let me make sure it's legit. Let me reach out to some experts who know. All right, this gets us to the actual guitar purchasing part. They'll always say, plays perfectly, no fret buzz, no and so the interesting thing is that when I get into guitar buying mode, there are a bunch of things that I know to do. I literally will move up and down the neck every single fret on every string. And I will find the one that buzzes, because there's no guitar that doesn't at least have one little tiny fret that buzzes a little bit different than the others, unless it's just come from the luthier or unless it's brand new. It just isn't that way. Neck moves a little bit, maybe a fret gets played a little bit more, and it may be minute, but I'm going to find it. The other thing is that you basically find a light source and you look down from the butt of the body down the neck, and you look for any kind of frets that are higher or lower. You look for warps, in the neck and anything. But ideally, it should be a nice, smooth, even shadow. And that neck was incredibly straight. And sometimes it'll have just a little bit of tiny give to it. But the point being is that it was great. It played great. It sounded great. I played it acoustically. And I brought a little baby amp with me. The other thing you want to look for, and this is the challenge of buying something online, is that there are certain types of chords, we'll call them the Hendrix chords, where my thumb being around the top of the neck and then going to do certain types of kind of, if I were taking A minor pentatonic and playing this little kind of blues. I've lost the ability to play without a pick. But I'm trying to do a particular lick here, so the idea, and I realize I'm not plugged in, but that little spot right there, and this neck is just a little too big right there, and that's kind of the problem. My thumb is just not quite big enough to get around the top of the neck here and have the extension. And that I can do fine-ish without the thumb around the top of the neck, but that's the one thing that I'm always looking for. So you want to find that one thing that on certain guitars you have a little bit of a challenge with and go, what's it like on this guitar? And or then kind of begin to go, okay, C-shaped fenders, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously testing all the places where bends have a tendency to get funky. 15th fret, second string, how's it bend? 15th fret, high E string, how's it bend? Move up to the 17th fret, whole step bend on the high E string. 19th fret, what's going to happen there? The other thing you want to do is bring a tuner with you and test the first fret on the second string. I promise you, you're going to hate me for this because now you can hear it every time you do it. 90% plus of the guitars in your collection, if you tune the second string and you play the C at the first fret on the second string, it will be sharp. And that's because of the way the nut is cut. And what it is that basically the nut is here, the first fret is here, and then the rest of the neck is kind of like this. And rather than cutting the nut too low as you potentially move up to the top of the neck, you just have to have a luthier that really knows how to cut for the rest of the neck and the first fret. They just have to really know how to actually set that up. And most manufacturers don't take the time to do that. Just saying it. Okay, so the deal is that I did plug it in. Ultimately, I know that the Gibson humbuckers, they sound great. And really, I was looking for the acoustic sound. There's another thing in buying an instrument, and I'm gonna get off this in a moment. Oh, my word, 6:57. Is you want to listen for how played the instrument is. The guitar that I purchased is it has a tightness to it where I'm like, this guitar has hardly been played. And what's great about that is it means that as I play it in, it's going to play to my vibrations, which means all the stuff that I do in the places that I play on the neck, the guitar, that's where it's going to go. Sweet spot. And the other thing you want to listen for is are there any spots in the neck where you're like, it just doesn't sound good here? Because here's the deal. If it doesn't sound good, it ain't going to get any better with time. Okay. Let's see here. I love it. Amen. Yep. Absolutely not. And I've got like 200 transactions on eBay. I'm in it to win it. That's so funny. Yeah, and that's the thing, Ricky, is you do really, really want to do. And here's the other thing, is that that sometimes, and this was my point about this stuff. Sometimes people just get stuff, and it's not, they really don't know. So the thing about the AC30 there is that, I've wanted one of those forever. But, the other thing is I had the opportunity. There we go. Hang on. Where is Joe? Hang on. I saw him coming in there. And that's kind of the thing is that shape of the neck, like, and it's not until, often you're like, you playing that guitar and then you go to play some song that maybe it's not in your regular repertoire and you're like, oh, I should have thought about that a couple months ago when I was buying that thing. Strat neck ramp. That's funny. And bend every string. And that's, this is the whole thing is like, literally I kind of went, every single fret on that guitar was played. And I was like, I wanted to know exactly, and again, certain areas of the neck, on a neck that is problematic, will also sound different. So when they sound different, there's other stuff that can happen. That's going to be an area that may be prone to warping, or maybe doesn't want to respond to a truss rod quite as much, or whatever it is that is going to make it misbehave. Now, there are people over on Facebook that I know are over there. So let me see if I can be polite enough to say hello to them. All right. Oh, my word. Hey, hello, everybody. Okay. Holy cow. Don't be ashamed. There we go. Good. Apple is scaling back my performance to make you new thing. Awesome. And that Steve was talking about Steve McFarland. I got a Vox Tone Lab desktop. Awesome. Blew one for less than $100 from Guitar Center's used section in 2011. A really good first processor, and based to what tones I like. And this is kind of one of the great things about buying used gear. And you can have the opportunity to buy. It's like buying a used car. Generally speaking, you drive a car off the lot, it depreciates by 10%, literally driving it out of the parking lot. So by buying used gear, you have the opportunity to buy in. And there are times when you buy something that's less expensive, it allows you to just kind of go, let me find this out. And again, I really want to be clear about the fact that honestly, I don't care what the price point is. When one goes to buy something, have some very clear intention. Now, I want to get something that I wasn't initially planning on grabbing, and I do apologize for jumping off frame here, but I actually, oh, you know what? I'm going to get myself in trouble because I know I'm not going to have a stand that I can put these in, I'm in trouble twice. Hang on. I can fix this. I'm coming back. Really? Not going anywhere. For a minute. All right. Here we go. All right. Now. So here's the other thing on the brand front. Okay. So I'm going to go into a couple of other things. So the funny thing is that this is a Squier Jazzmaster. It's not in tune, but I do have a tuner here nearby. But the point being is, like, this is a sub $200 beginner model that actually is a good. Oh, I'm down a half step. That's hilarious. Tune it down a half step. It's a Fender. I should say it's not a Telecaster as a Fender. Kind of like, just so you know, like most of my Strats, the first thing I start to do is like, tune it down a half step. But the deal is, this little guitar sounds and plays so good, I was completely blown away. So as long as we're in the Squier department end of things, I don't care so much about whether it says Squier or Fender so much, although honestly this is one of a couple of Squiers I own. What I'm looking for is what's the country of manufacturing origin. Malaysian stuff generally is like, they are making great gear. And so I'm very happy. That is just one great little guitar. Where are you made? Crafted in, oh, sorry, not in Malaysia, Indonesia. And guess where it's made? Indonesia. Sub $200. If this was my first guitar, I'd be a way better guitar player now. I am buying this guitar. It came for a review. I'm buying it. It's just ridiculous. Like, this is my travel guitar forever. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Just, the neck feels great. I can actually do that thing there. But it's kind of crazy, you know. And I'm not going to really call out some of the other folks. You can fill in the blanks without me having to. No, I'm actually going to go there because it's truth. I actually really want to love Epiphone. The challenge is, every time I go into a Guitar Center, and this is one of the great things about a Guitar Center, you can actually walk in and play a guitar, and you can actually go, is this guitar for me? And the frets are undressed on the edge of the fingerboard. I'm just like, well, what else didn't they do, right? And it's just one of those things. So in other words, it's going to cost me, I don't know, $80 to take it to my guitar guy, because I don't do any of that work myself. They're professionals for that. But it's just like, how much time would it have taken just to have somebody dress the edge of the frets there so you don't end up bloody after playing the guitar? It's just really disappointing. The other thing is that I know that there are a bunch of higher end Epiphones. Like, I've toyed with the idea of buying the Bonamassa Epiphone, because my guess is that's probably a great guitar. I digress, but other than that, to say, you want to look at the country of origin, because it does matter. You also want to look, you know, if it's a Squier, in particular, the Indonesian stuff. I've got a Squier Jazz P that is a phenomenal $400, sub $400 bass. You know, again, value. Okay, let's take a look here. Alan's got a thing for PV. Okay, question. Oh, look at you with all the question marks. Have you bought any guitars or gear from Guitar Center or used their website? Yes. So this is so great question. All right. A couple of things. Every so often, you're going to look for something that you want that is not easy to find. It may be a particular year. Maybe, you know, I want to rebuy the first guitar I ever had. It was some court, in burlap. I don't know, something bizarre that they just wouldn't have made a lot of them, right? So the Guitar Center used part of Guitar Center website is great because, unlike Craigslist, you can filter through the entire country. You can find it. You can have it shipped to a local Guitar Center if looking comes to trying and trying comes to buying. I do not know the exact nuances of, because basically when they ship it, you basically are purchasing it. I think ultimately if you don't keep it, you may have to eat the shipping. No, that's not true. That cabinet that was messed up, I didn't eat the shipping on. They did. but I didn't do the ship to store. I had them ship it to me, and when I sent it back. So it's and just ethically speaking, let's just say this: there are people that just buy stuff from Sweetwater, to just try it out, and then send it back. At the point that you actually decide that you want to purchase it, it's not kind of like it's not like the library where you check it out and see if you like the book or not. That's kind of not cool. I just need to say that. But with the Guitar Center thing, what's really neat is I can look across the entire country. I can also use it to check value. So let's flip this thing around. There are times where we want to sell gear. So let's take a look at what stuff's going for. That's one of the things about Reverb that's really good. And this is the other thing about certain particular pieces of gear that get hot. Like the Klon right now is going through the roof. Is it going to go to 7,000 or is it going to dip down to 4 and it's going to dip down to 3? Because at a certain point, people are going to come to their senses. But you can make your way to pages that are basically landing pages for pieces of gear, and there's a chart that actually tells you what's going on. And you can actually see what stuff is really selling for on Reverb. And right now what's happened is there's a little bit, it's a buyer's market on Reverb for certain types of things, is that there are enough people, I don't think because they're hurting, they're just kind of like, I don't need this, but I could use the money. And so I've bought a couple of pieces. And it's not perfect. So the thing about the AC30 was none of the photos. Let me see if I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna invite you to Doug World because I'm gonna show you. And the buyer's name is gonna be. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I can do this without having their name be visible in this, or the seller's name. No, I can't. All right. Well, you know what? It's all good. They've been really cool with me. I just didn't want to dishonor them, but they've been cool. So let me just I'm going to walk you through the reality of this transaction. So first of all, the amp is amazing, and it wasn't cheap. But here's the deal. So that's what the amp was listed for, and obviously $3,700 is a flippin' ton of money. But as I was doing my research, looking at, oh, is that me over there? Hey, oh, good. Oh, I could do this. Hi. As I was looking at these, basically 64. AC30 was going somewhere between $7,500 and $3,500, and there were a bunch right in the $3,500 to $4,200 range. And I was like, you know what? It's getting towards the end of the year. I don't know. Offer him $3,000. See what he does. And because I fully expected him to come back because I figured he's at 37. He's going to go to 35. And I said, and then if I ask 3,000, he'll go to 3,250. And he took my 3,000. I was like, okay. And so the deal though is you go through here. Oh, hang on, let me get to the right page. One of the things that you never, ever, ever, ever see. And mind you, this thing's got all the stuff that I want. It's got the right speaker. Those are golden speakers. Are they original to the amp? The date codes are right. Are they original to the amp? For $3,000? I don't care. They're era appropriate. I wasn't buying it as a collector's piece, other than when it is time to flip it, which will happen when I am placed in my grave, and Melissa will be extracting the value of this amp out of that thing. But the top boost in the back there. Now, what you never actually see is this thing all the way face down, because it didn't have those. That's $27 a piece. I had to buy 3 of them. Now, the good thing is that seller there actually did go ahead and, I don't think honestly, I think most of these folks are actually pretty darn honest people. And as soon as I went, it doesn't have the vents. And so he was really fast in getting back to me. We had a really positive exchange, and it's all been good. So the thing is though, lesson learned is like, unless you can see every area that you want to see, be aware. Look at that. Bruce, look at this. Come on. That's a man who knows he's hedging his bets right there. And Bruce, it sounds amazing. I'm just going to actually go, and I'll be doing some video stuff around that amp. But the interesting thing is that I kind of found, because the thing is, I don't know what to do with, I mean, yes, I know to plug into an AC30, and, but there are 3 channels. There's a normal, brilliant, and vibrato. There's kind of a hot input and a less hot input. And I kind of like, I don't know. Okay, I messed around, brilliant channel, messed with a top boost, and all of a sudden I ended up at this setting. And basically every guitar I plugged into it sounded like the character for the guitar, but coming through this gorgeous amp. Great blues tone, great jangle tones. I was just like, okay. So, the real thing is that, was it that good, right? And it was. So I was like, okay, this was good. And the thing is, because I'm a professional gear demonstrator and I'm kind of a bit of a collector, it fits into the thing and it checks a box. I got a really good price on it. The amp, I've got to take it to my tech. It needs to have, I've got the vents coming for another $100. But the guy, I think, we ended up deciding, I think he's going to reimburse me for most of the cost. There were some less expensive vents. I wanted the vintage vents. He offered to pay the full price of the non-ones, and I found these vintage correct ones, and I said, just give me half the money. Because I thought, I don't, because I beat the guy up about the price. I actually felt guilty. I didn't feel so guilty. I was like, well, you want an extra $250? But I was like, so he's like, he already did his part to be cool. So I was like, you know what? I don't need to beat him up over $50. And he probably would have paid it, but I didn't need to be that guy, right? Here we go. What's going on, Henry? How you doing? I got my first Strat User GC. There we go. Come on. Strat Roadhouse Deluxe. Awesome guitar. Now modded with Lambert tones. Come on. Bring on the Lambert tones. Curtis is awesome, by the way. Grinder triple shot HSS pickup and a 920D HSS harness and 510 frame. You are putting on some muscle on that guitar. Way to go. I bet that's got some lovely jangle. Right on. Congratulations. And this is what's great about Guitar Center. I'm just going to go there. You can walk in and you can pull a guitar down off the shelf and go, boom. Here's the other piece of advice I will have for you. Don't pick up something you can't afford. It's just a bad idea. Because most of the time, then you just kind of walk out of there feeling bad. Pick up a guitar that, like, you know what? I've been thinking about maybe that guitar. And then you pick it up and you go, talking to me. And then, and my general rule is that if there's a guitar that talks to me, I'm not picking up something. I don't, go in and play guitars that are out of the price range of what I can afford. The past several years have been really lean in my world. So I haven't really bought much stuff. So for me to buy gear, it wasn't like, oh, okay, this is great. It goes to the, it's like, I want to be really, really smart because you can only spend that money once. But in so doing, there were also a couple of check boxes that I wanted to do. Bruce, they're like laughing at Bruce. Jump now. She's taking deposits, Bruce. Melissa, what's your PayPal? Hold on. Wait. My first interest is Music Master Bass. That's great. Oh, that's great. Yes, it is. That little guitar. Now, speaking of which, this is the great thing about Fender and their history of these little guitars. They have a history of making great starter guitars, and by the fact that, so this is the reissue of the Duosonic, and this guitar is amazing. And it was like a sub $600 guitar. It's made in Mexico. Hecho en Mexico, no? Sí. But, out of tune, but that's because the last time I played it, I probably abused it slightly, but it's got the gold anodized pickguard. So I had a 57 Duosonic, and this is about as close as you could get to it. They really, really did a great job because Fender is just like swinging for the fences. All right, so somebody's thinking, what about this Gibson Mesa Boogie thing? I don't know. I think Gibson's doing a great job, and I think that, that I wouldn't have bought. Okay, this is a funny thing. Anybody that's old enough to remember, the Norlin era Gibsons were flippin' terrible. And I'm on Reverb or somewhere, it's like, Norlin era Gibson. I'm like, yeah. Like, it's like who passed gas and not the good gas, right? I was just like they're making a thing that's a Norlin era Gibson. I'm like, so you're celebrating, it's kind of like going, Norlin era Gibson and CBS Fender amp. Now, the only thing I will say about CBS Fender amps is this, and this is kind of the cool thing about gear. You don't have to own it to love some of the folklore. And so the amps that I have yet to buy my first one is the Drip Edge Fender amplifier. So basically, it's the era that it's the beginning of the Silverface era, but they had this little kind of it's kind of like, it looks a little bit like pewter. It's just kind of like along the edge of the grill. And quite often those amps have got just old blackface parts because that's what Fender had there. So they're Silverface amps with blackface parts. Eric Johnson on the Avia Musicom anniversary tour took a pair of those of the Bandmaster reverbs. What I really want is a Bandmaster reverb and matching cabinet. And I think that the cabinets are 215 JBL. So it's kind of a unique thing. There's a guy, I'm going to forget his name on YouTube, who does all these vintage guitars. And you can find him, look for Les Paul Special, found it. It's not the Salvation Army. It was at the some thrift store, and he kind of found this thing. So he has all these great vintage, guitars that he plays and whatnot. Fine player, but you'll hear him playing through an old Bandmaster, but a Bandmaster reverb. Those are great little amps. Missed the joke. Had a meeting and missed the fun, but I'll take 20. Yeah, there we go. I got 27. Do we hear more? That's it. Yeah, it was. I have. It was. I have to an Olympic white. Oh, 70s headstock reminded my first impression of Jimi Hendrix. Absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna and congratulations again. That's great. So here's one of the challenges that we get into, and the interesting thing is and this is kind of what happened with the ES thing. I really, after playing Mason's burgundy or cherry stained ES, I was like, oh, I really kind of like that. And I kind of was like, well, that's what Eric Clapton played. And then there's this Eric Clapton signature model. I'm like, no, that's never going to fly. But, then I kind of started looking into this. And the one that appeared in the paper was kind of a kind of a three-tone slight tobacco sunburst. And it's not really my favorite finish, but I was buying a guitar. I wasn't buying the finish. And so the end result is it's going to be a great guitar, and it fills a really important niche. I don't have one of those as a gear demo guy. And so the guitars I buy, first of all, if they sound bad, people will think it's the gear I'm demonstrating. So that's never going to be a win. But the other thing, and this is what's great about being able to go, all right, that's what drew me to the guitar, but having the ability to kind of go, did I make a guitar decision simply because of the way it looks? And fortunately, first of all, you got the headstock, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you picked it up, and you're like, oh, great guitar. The challenge I want to make sure everybody here doesn't do is just like, oh, I love the way that looks, I've got to have it. It's just kind of like, it's like buying a car that you like the way it looks and not actually kind of finding out if it actually runs okay. It's not always the best thing. All right, let's see. All right. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I mean, I think people, first of all, have gotten really increasingly negative in this age, and I think it's going to be really easy for people to just kind of Gibson. Blah, blah. I think, first of all, I know Randall Smith a little bit because I grew up in the Bay Area. My first boogie amp, it's like kind of a tragic story. My buddy, oh boy, some of my delinquent friends, they decided that they needed to like take a car ride in the middle of the night too late in a not stolen, let me repeat, not stolen car, and just kind of stacked around a telephone pole that like I was about this far from basically being dead. And so like the back of the car here wrapped around the telephone pole as the car careened down, and I literally came to, and my head had knocked the little window in the backseat of a Bug out, and I came to, and it's leaning against the kind of the metal frame of the window, and I'm looking out on the ground, and seeing the window and the rubber, whatever the heck it is that goes around the window, completely intact on the grass. So I literally hit that sucker so hard with my head that it just went boop. And that I came to, and my head came back, and the blood came gushing down. I had my Aerosmith t-shirt on, covered with blood. Broken pelvis, broken hip. And for the first couple of minutes I was grooving. I'm like, kind of hurts to breathe. I'm like, it really hurts to breathe, and I can't walk. Like, so, you know, the ambulance shows up, and the worst part is the emergency room doctor was my buddy who was in the car's dad, so he's pissed. And here Doppler comes in on the gurney, and I'm not going to go into any specificity about what they do, but part of one of the things they do is make sure you don't have any internal bleeding, and we're just going to leave it there. Awkward. All right. Weather strip, thank you very much. Yes, I was weather stripping. It was awkward. All right, hang on a second. I got to jump over here into Facebook for a minute. No, I'm trying to listen to Doug about the topic. That's so funny. All right. Okie dokie. Harley Benton's. So I am Shane. You've got a Harley Benton? Dude, I really, really, really want to try a Harley Benton. That would be great. So, okay. And then I'm going back. Yeah, Steve. So this is the whole thing. And sorry, not everybody, I can't pull this in. Steve's comment, the J. Mascis Jazzmaster is a fantastic Squire for $500. Again, if it's Squire and it's made in Indonesia, it's going to be a quality instrument. And that is a pretty cool thing. Brett, I have a 40th anniversary America Strat. It doesn't stay in tune with the trem as I use my deluxe. It doesn't say stay in tune with the trem as much as my Squire Deluxe Strat. I can nearly locking trem treat my Squire. I've done everything with the 40th anniversary. It goes right out of tune. So it's not always about the price. So here's the other thing, Brett. There are, first of all, you know this, so, you know, I'm just going to say this. Sometimes it's a matter of just finding the right tech who can get the guitar to behave. And, you know, the other thing that's interesting, there was a change that I did, a string change that I did on Pinky. And, I'm pretty good at changing strings at this point. But on that particular string change, and I didn't really do anything different than whatever that I normally do, but literally every time I did the bar, and you know what I'm going to talk about, like the high string went, ding! And then the high string goes sharp. Like, it was doing something where I managed to twist this. And Eddie Van Halen, in an early interview, talked about the fact that he would twist the strings. And you know, like Eddie was famous every so often for baiting the hook. He was like, no, and I rub elbow grease on the top of the amp such that when it warms up, you know, the tubes are, you know, this is like, every so often he did actually kind of reel people in with a little malarkey. But the thing is he used to talk about twisting the string a little bit because they were like, how do you get your tremolo to stay in tune? He said, you know, the thing is that you have to twist the string a little bit so that as you wrap it around the peg, you do it the right number of times, then it actually runs straight from where it sits in the block, because this was pre-Floyd, and where it's sitting at the tuning peg, such that it's kind of, as you're turning the tuning peg, it's kind of twisting the string straight. And so I you know, having read that, then that always stuck in my mind, and I could tell that was kind of what was happening with the tremolo. And it's just like that particular string change, it would not, and it wouldn't stay in tune, but the one before and the one after was fine. So sometimes it's strings. I know that you know that it's not, and I know that you know that it can happen, but you're talking about a problem that is bigger than that. So the deal is that finding, you know, what's going on. Okay, well, okay, you know, I tell you what, let's back up a step. The real question is, why do some Strats just not want to stay in tune? It's because they have a tendency to develop two spots where the trem wants to sit, a lower spot and an upper spot. And the decision is, do I sit at the lower spot or do I sit at the upper spot? Now, the interesting thing is I used to be an uppie, and I've now become a downy. And the interesting thing is Lincoln Brewster's an uppie, and the funny thing is I had the Fender guys and Lincoln on a show, and I was, Lincoln was saying his son had the guitar and blah blah blah, and he did the uppie thing. You pull the bar up. What it does is it pulls the extra string that's gotten, as you play. One of the things that'll happen on a Strat or a Telecaster in particular. So if you wonder, like, my Telecaster is going sharp, what's going on? You play the string hard and it pops up over the nut and it gets stuck there. And what it means is that there's a kind of boop, 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 boop. It's now a shorter expanse of string, which means it's higher in pitch. And so, and that's why if you give it a gentle stretch, and I'm not talking about pulling anything that's getting rid of what's happening at the nut, because of course you always tune up to the note. But what ends up happening is you kind of begin to go, okay, then that's part of the problem. But in terms of the downy and the uppie allows you to pull the string back across the nut that gets caught as you're playing or as you're kind of doing whatever. The problem is, if you do an uppie, when you do bends, it pulls it into the downy. And any of you who have locking fine tuning tremolos, in case you hadn't noticed, but you already knew that anyway, if you push it into the downward position and tune, and then you pull it up, you'll begin to see to one extent or another that there are two spots that the tremolo sits at. And that's because where the stud sits into the body and the knife edge sits against that knife edge starts to, instead of being a single edge, like that, it actually, this will be probably the best analogy, instead of it being like this, where it's a single edge like that, sitting against there, what starts to happen is it starts to be more like this, and this is not quite going as well as I'd planned. But all right, so it starts to end up with two edges where it'll sit at. And so because of that, one's an uppie and one's a downy. In a Floyd type situation, I'm inclined to do it as an uppie. But in the stock Strats now, all my guitars are set up as a downy. And it does take some tweaking to get the guitar such that, one, it's not getting stuck at the nut, two, that the strings are well stretched, but you already know how to do that, and three, that there's not hanky-panky happening down here at the bridge. So my guess is between the nut and the bridge and a downy and an uppie, that's where your challenge is. And the good news is that is totally fixable. It's just a matter of finding the right tech to do it, because those guys know how to do that. Okie dokie. And all right. I love it. Will pencil lead and a locking tuner help that? So yes. So in years past, all the and so technically, and you know that it's not a lead pencil, it's graphite, which is actually even better than lead. But graphite is what those of us who were aged enough that had these things called skateboards. You would put graphite in the wheels there was basically a powdered lubricant. And so, there was a period of time, every pencil in the house, like you would you slack the string, you lift it up, and then you run the pencil along the bottom side of the string, and then you put it back down in there, and then you kind of bring the string back and forth a little bit, and that drops some of the graphite powder in there. The other thing that I would do is then I would sometimes also then pull the string up out of the channel there, and then I would just kind of move the pencil along kind of the edge of the nut there, and then I would also run it across the top of there. And that works wonders. So yes, 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 and yes. Yes. How about that for an answer? Definitely yes. This is a great question. So, it's an interesting thing. The wireless thing, it's I think it's great, and I'll tell you all the reasons why I think it's great in particular. When I was a worship and creative arts director at a small church, we did a lot of acoustic worship with a cajon and an acoustic electric bass. Kind of like a big kind of Dean, beautiful looking thing. Kind of looked like a oversized guitar, right? And so I was using that acoustic electric. It was an Ibanez, still got the guitar, but running it wirelessly, ran wah wah pedal and Eventide H9. It was like, it was this, I had this lovely shimmer setting that like the number of times people were like, what is that you're using on the guitar? Like, not kind of like, what is that you're using? They would be like, what is that? And the wah was really cool. Alive, like, by Hillsong United, it's like, that was perfect for that. But it also enabled me to walk out front of house. So I could actually hear what my guitar sounded like. I could hear what the team sounded like. And it really gave me a chance to also know what the venue sounded like. And, especially when you're trying to lead people somewhere, if you don't really know what the canvas actually looks like, other than where your little dot is positioned, it makes it a lot harder to make better executive decisions. Is somebody too quiet? Is somebody too loud? Are we not blending? Is the time not good? Is the mix bad? And in particular, it was really interesting. There was a nightclub where we would do like a Sunday night church that we rented this nightclub out, and they had this bazillion-dollar PA, and it's an amazing room, and the sound was unreal. And the sound tech there was the house sound person, and they were awesome. And they appreciated the fact that we love detail, and we appreciated the fact that they really cared to do an amazing job. So we would do proper sound checks, and I had a chance to walk around that room, and just like the sound was great. Without a wireless, I never would have been able to do that. And I also enjoy the freedom of not having another cable to be tethered to. I think it's great. So yes, phenomenal. How's that? Is that positive enough for you? All right. Wait. Is Jem here? Where's Jem? Jem, what's going on, my man? Happy New Year to you, the rock star from down under. The thunder. There's other thunder from down under, but he's the real thunder from down under. What's going on, Jem? Dude. So we're talking about gear. What's up? We're talking about, and the other part of this, and this is great. So I will gleefully take that bait. So in the United States, as Jem will know, he spent a bunch of time in Nashville. That gets us to the Craigslist thing. I started to talk about this a little bit. Jem, and I'm not saying this to make you feel bad, so bear with. So when I'm hunting for a piece of gear, I basically will, again, the first place I'm going to go if it's used is Reverb. I will look, and the amazing thing about eBay, and again, the cabinet, I got it on eBay, and I had a great experience. So you can find a great seller on there, but what I'm finding is a lot of the people that are listing on Reverb are also listing on eBay. So I'm seeing the same stuff. So I would much rather buy it on Reverb because it's a much better user experience. They care a lot more about that. Arguably because they're kind of in direct competition from those folks across Lake Michigan from them, aka Sweetwater. So as an online retailer or e-tailer, they've got some serious competition. So it's important to them. The folks at eBay just don't care, which is why they created Reverb. They basically are responsible for the thing that blew up into Reverb and basically ate them. But you'll see the same people selling gear. The thing about it is that I'll go out and start on Reverb. I will again look at comps of prices of stuff. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. Oh, that's a big old topic. Poke me on that just in case I get into this thing. Hit me again in the chat on that just so I don't forget. So the depending on the budget, the Allen and Heath guys are just knocking it out of the park, and they actually care about the house of worship. But there you go. Thinking about the Behringer Wing and Allen Heath. So here's the deal. Without saying anything disparaging about the folks at Behringer, the Allen and Heath guys care about the house of worship in a very sincere and connected way. Not only that, as a quick reminder, Worship Musician Chapel featuring Lincoln Brewster, sponsored by Allen Heath LR Bags, Friday, January 22nd, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And you can sign up to attend all of that stuff via that link right there. They are legit, and I am so thankful that we have had the privilege of working with them, and they are awesome. And their stuff. The other thing that's great about Baby Rabbit Trail on this whole thing is that as your church is looking at potentially getting a mixing console, one of the other things is looking at what is our in-ear solution going to be for that. And again, the other part of this is Dante, which is that ability to send all your digital information around via Cat6 cable, which I believe can handle up to 96 channels. I don't think it's 48, but I could be wrong, along one single Cat6 cable. Cat5, Cat6, but Cat6 is, I believe, a higher quality cable, and I can't tell you the difference between Cat5 and Cat6 other than Cat6 is better because it's got more cats to it. But the point being is that the ecosystem that Alan Heath has had, and they had a chance to come out after Behringer had developed their stage box, having a mixing console that has kind of a stage box and a distribution thing set up is good. The other thing, though, I will say is the Behringer personal mixers, PM something or other, personal monitor, those are really good. And so they've had a chance to work that out. But, I think the technology in the Wing may not be that much further down the line, or if at all, than from the M32s. Better throughput on Cat6. Thank you very much. Excellent. All right. So let me get back to the whole kind of, where do you start? Reverb is great because, again, if you land on one of those main product pages, you can look at comps and see what it's actually, you can actually see actual sales, actual prices. And so you can kind of begin to go, are these people like, in California, it's, legal 420. 420 is 24/7 here in the state of California. And there are people that are just flipping high. And so the interesting thing is there's a pedal. I'm an Ibanez pedal collector, and there's a pedal called the OD9, which is loosely part of the Tube Screamer family. So it's been like, and it's an expensive pedal. I don't own one. $500, $700. When the Klon went crazy, all these folks with the OD9s all of a sudden went from $700. It's the same flipping pedals owned by the same people, because I know it. It's not like they mysteriously grew, they produce like 2,000 of these pedals. They're rare. But like, it's the same people with the same pedals, and now they want $2,000 for it. And you go back and you look at the transactions, like $700. And you're like, you people are high and you're shysters. Because nobody's actually paid that amount. And so now you see them lowering it by $400 and so on and so forth. And you're just like, that's what the advantage of being able to use Reverb is, that actually provides you with some really good statistical data, so you can see the curve of what things have actually sold for, when it's peaked, and if it's a consistent peak and it continues to grow, then it's kind of like, well, maybe the time to buy that is now. The other thing is knowing exactly, and this is the thing, being an educated buyer, knowing what you want. Henry is a great example. By the way, don't sleep on the Epiphone ES335 inspired. I always wanted an Epiphone, but I settled for this. The Epiphone, it's an unbelievable guitar. So first of all, I totally feel you. So here's the thing: is as a minute ago, and let me gently backing up. I think the Bonamassa guitar, I think is I haven't played one, but I'm like, I know they got there. It's like you can buy them like $900, $700. I think I saw one for it. I'm like, what can I trade to get one of those? I almost bought your guitar, and I was like, well, what will you trade for that? Because they're the good, quote unquote. Let me back up a step. There was a period of time I spent a bunch of time. I wanted to buy a couple of the different Les Paul models in the Epiphone thing to use for demo guitars, to demonstrate, hey, this is what it is, this is what's good, this is what's bad about it. And I spent a bunch of time at the local Guitar Center playing a couple of them. Generally, but not exclusively speaking, the ones with the bolt-on necks, the ones with the set necks, awesome. And I am nearly positive that like the 335, I was like, what can you trade for it? And then he was gone like a day later. but the 335 that they were selling was a set neck one. It's basically like a Gibson, but with a slightly different headstock on it. Great guitar. I would have loved that. So let me be very clear about that. It's again, and this is kind of my comment about the guitar that I wanted to love. Epiphone makes a knockoff of the Star Player, right? You know which one I'm talking about? It kind of looks like the Star Player, and I was like, I just want to fall in love with this guitar, and I went into Guitar Center and I played it. I'm like, are my hands bleeding yet? I was so disappointed for myself because I was so ready to fall in love with that guitar, and I'm like, the tremolo really wouldn't stay in tune. Where you're kind of like, on a guitar that's sub $1,000 and going and spending $100 at my Guitar Tech on a guitar that I just bought to get it to play in tune. I'm like, and to have them do some fret work, I'm just like, this isn't, and I couldn't recommend it to anybody. The whole point of reason I got so excited about that set neck Les Paul, I'm like, I could recommend this guitar to people all day long. I ended up not kind of buying 3 Epiphones, kind of here are the different tiers, but they make some great instruments. So I back up, and my apologies. So just know I wasn't getting aggressive on the Epiphone thing per se, and I should have clarified that. But I was so disappointed to pick up those guitars, and because I just wanted to love it, and what I actually really wanted. My heart was, I want there to be an affordable thing that you don't have to go out and buy a $2,500 Star Player to actually have that kind of vibe in a guitar. And I was excited that Epiphone had something that was in that ballpark, and that really, 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 really bumped me out. So yeah, new Ibanez LB1. What, Lincoln Brewster one? No. I haven't seen that. Got to check that out. And Josh got a new guitar and flat 5. And Laurie Basilio's got a new guitar. And by the way, next week we're talking about the stuff that came out over this past week and the beginning of this year. It's going to be new gear in 2021. So just so you know, so we're not done on this gear thing. So boom, 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 boom. Smoking Joe Bonamassa. Yeah, he's a bad boy. Yes, and yes. There we go, the Wildcat. Dude, I just wanted to love that guitar. I was like, that is the quote-unquote working man's Star Player. Because a Star Player, it's a great guitar. It's $2,500. I mean, it's just like, that's, that for many, and many people, that's just kind of like, I want one, but it's just like, I want to eat. All right, so Joe, so Maxon, so let's back up a step. Ibanez is a brand. They are not a manufacturer. They literally are a brand. Now, it is a brand that is owned by Hoshino, and Hoshino is a manufacturer. So the original Tube Screamers absolutely were made by Maxon. And so, oh, there we go, LB1, there we go, Laurie Basilio. Oh, right, because it's like a Telecaster, but with some whammy action, as I recall. Yeah, no, it looks like a great guitar. Vivian Campbell Epiphone, wow, oh, that's great. The Nighthawk, here we go. So here, not to totally date myself, but I remember the NAMM show when that was released, the Kramer guitar. That's so funny. So I recall it had 2 humbuckers in the neck in the middle position and no bridge pickup. But I remember Vivian was there kind of, I think that was Dio days still, and if not, it was just post Dio. Totally dating myself. In any case, all right. Good. Like, I don't feel like as bad as I did. Agree with you 100%. I really don't like Epiphones, but I've got my hand on the new model, the Epi 335 Sam Ash. I was like, whoa, I need it. Another dream come true. Dude, and what an amazing sound. Like, when you play the ES sound, it's just like, the funny thing is that when Mason loaned me that guitar, if you guys will, let's see. I wonder if it's going to play. It should play it. Yeah, hang on just a second. There are 2 clips here. Give me just a moment. Renders. Demo. week one. Give me just a moment. Date modified. Test for Ken, week 4, demo 1. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm not hearing that because I've got everything muted here. I'll play it next week is what I'm going to do. Because since I don't have it set up to monitor, I don't want it to turn into mayhem. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Shh, shh, shh. All right. Okay, good. New Tommy Thayer model. The metalheads are out. We go Dio, and now we're at Kiss. I love it. I have not. Nashville Junior B Bender built in. Ooh. All right, Jam. Alan Heath. They seem very user friendly. And however, in 2021, is the tech on one of those still good compared to the new stuff coming out? The new board is the Aventus. I think is their new flagshipy one. So here is Jem, you know how to find me. What I will do is I will either send your questions to my guy, or I will find out if he wants to be in touch with you directly. How's that? And he's a great guy. I tell you, let me make it easy without totally putting him on the spot. Give me a list of like 5 questions to start with. Where does it sit in the world of Alan and Heath in terms of the timeline of the products? Some specific questions about that, and I will forward him those questions, and I'll either get on the phone with him and I'll get him to answer them, or I will forward your contact to him. Because he's a slightly busy guy, I can't promise he's gonna like, hey, my buddy in Australia, you'll love this guy. He's amazing. He's a crazy great guitar player. He's like, I'm in the United States. I've got a guy in Australia for that. But send me the questions, and I will do everything I can to get him to answer that. All right, great. Dude, the whole thing on the semi-hollow is just like, it is a whole different. I mean, I played Mason's guitar, and I was like, it's the funny thing is that this is one of those. And I've got a series of texts. I'm like, it changed my life. Like, I literally kind of like, there's a whole part of my guitar playing imitating John Mayer, that and other players, but literally the way John Mayer plays an ES335, I'm just like, I just want to sound like that. Just that sound will be just fine. But the thing is like, it is just such an amazing guitar. Oh, there we go. Hold on, I lost Jem. There we go. Yeah, Jem is awesome. Rockstar. Woohoo! Okay, so let me not fanboy too much here. So getting back to the phases, because this is, honestly, it's a funny thing. Is early on it was Brett that mentioned he's got a book about being a first time guitar buyer. And the thing is that you walk into any one of the range of experiences of my first guitar to like, I'm buying my first ES335 and I'm buying it on Craigslist. I know it's $600 less than it's going for on eBay. I mean, on Reverb and eBay. But the point being is I'm like, red flags are up. I reach out to somebody I know, boom. So what you want to be conscious of is which type of buyer are you? Is it an impulse buy? Because if the price starts to get above $500, you're in the danger zone. So let me just warn you. I know that you kind of know this, but it's just like, it's kind of like going to the grocery store hungry. It usually doesn't lead to good choices. Just saying. And again, the boogie thing, I'm not going to get burned on it. Unfortunately, Reverb eBay is going to allow me to kind of, but I think they're going to have my money sitting in limbo for 30 days, which for most people is not something that's really, really cool at all. So again, what buyer are you? Are you like, I'm going to wait until I get the thing that I want at the price that I want? That's a smart buyer. Going to take your time. The other thing is that, for example, the used price on a Strymon Timeline on Craigslist has been $400 for 3 years. Like, one of the things I'm always doing is I'm trying to stay aware of the gear that's in my periphery. And I have a Timeline, I have a Big Sky, I have a Blue Sky. I want to know how the value is holding up over time, and I want to know kind of just it's a good thing. I also want to know, is Strymon, fallen from, from its previous untouchable perch. I've got a jet pedal on its way to me that's supposed to be kind of like a Strymon killer for half the money. Kind of excited about that. Not to kill Strymon for half the money, don't get me wrong. Ooh, hang on. Oh, thank you, my man. Oh, my word. You guys are expensive. Hold on. I'm going backwards. Oh, Joe, thank you very much. Love you too, bro. Right on. Awesome. That's okay. Everybody's allowed to be off topic once. So the interesting thing about boy, we're gonna have an interesting conversation. Again, I promised that I wasn't gonna hold any punches. So I know a guy whose name I won't mention who knows the neural guys, and I asked him to make an intro, and he made an intro, and then every email after that, I've never heard anything back. And I heard a similar story from another buddy of mine, who's far more famous than I am. Now, here's the thing: is I also know we live in a day and age where if I'm about to drop something as potentially significant as the neural, the quad core DSP, Cortex or whatever it is, quad Cortex, I probably have more important things than me showing up in their inbox. But I was also messaging the US guy. So, I guess I'm calling him out, which actually is kind of not cool. But, yes, Joe, more on the jet pedal coming soon. But the thing is that you asked me, so, I'm giving you the honest answer. I emailed like 3 times. I'm like, hey, just reply, let me know. And just nothing. And I'm just like, it's not like I'm totally unknown. And, and I wasn't asking for Quad Cortex. I was actually, hey, can you NFR me for the plugins so I can cut some demos with them? And it's just like it was just really kind of, and I'm probably saying more than I should, but this is a worship thing, and honestly, I think it's gonna be a very interesting thing. There's a lot of interest. First of all, let me just say this. You asked me, and I probably said more than I should have, but it's out there, and it's the truth. So how about that? The truth. I think their plugins are the best guitar plugins of just kind of standalone, like amazing, ridiculous guitar sounds that I've ever heard. Now, that is to say, because they're a kind of a bundle of, there's the amp, and then there's some great effects. Like, they have made the best sounding kind of one-stop guitar plugin on the planet. They are unreal. Unreal. And so the thing is, I would have been, if I was like, well, they're like, hey, we can't NFR you. What if we give you some sort of artist pricing or something? I'm like, okay, I'm in. But like the kind of like nothing, I'm just kind of like, come on, dudes. It's like it's small world. We're gonna be at NAMM, and I'm gonna turn around in the burger line, and I'm like, dude, you're the guy that didn't reply to my emails like 4 times. You got to be nice to people, but I'm just like, come on, that's not cool. Just tell me to take a hike. That I can deal with, but just not replying is not cool. But again, the other part is I don't know what's going on in people's lives. I know people are busy, but when you put your email out there, you actually just need to reply and just say, hey, you know what? It's cool. We're not interested, but it was just weird. But the clean sounds in particular are unreal. The Plini plugin, off the charts. So I'm really, really excited to check out the Quad Cortex. Cool. Thanks, guys. I'm watching the little bit. I without pulling these in, I can see previews kind of come up on the screen as they come in, at least on the YouTube side. But I'm really excited about the plugins, and I think they are really cool. The other thing that Rick alluded to is the Celestion Speaker Mix Pro. I wonder what's going to happen. Hang on a second. Let me try something. I'm gonna bring up a couple of clips here. Let me see if I can do this without breaking something. Let me find week 4 demo 1. What are you gonna do? That's demo 1. What's happening on the It's peaking. It's peaking a lot. Hang on a second. All right. Week 4, 3.1. Week 4, final. No. No. Date modified. Where did that go? Okay, hang on. All right, I'm going to adjust the level here, and hopefully this is going to sound good. It's coming through the Apollo. All right, I'm going to bring my level down. I'm going to play the demos here because one in particular is the ES that this is Celestion Speaker Mix Pro, and the thing about this, and it kind of as it relates to this, kind of all the sounds were done with plugins. So it's a combination of Universal Audio stuff and Brainwork stuff, but everything was done in the box, and it was done inside the box in an application called Gig Performer, which basically is an application that allows you to run all your studio plugins without a DAW. And dare I say, 5 years from now, because as I'm doing this stuff, I'm bringing up DBX 160 compressor, which has been used on 5 million hit songs. I'm bringing up a Lexicon 224 reverb, which is like honey. If you think your Strymon sounds good, this reverb, you're just kind of like, Strymon sounds great. This sounds unreal. It's, again, been used on 5 million records. But the point being is, as we futurecast, the idea of having a laptop or whatever it is that our mobile device has shrunk or grown into, this is a hint of what we're going to be able to do with our favorite plugins. So let's see if I can do this without blowing up the internet. I know where that is. I'm going to hopefully be able to adjust the level, and let's try it like, oh, okay. And we're going here, and we're going here, and we're going Speaker Mix Pro renders, and I'll end up scrubbing the timeline here to get to the video demos. But there are two I want you to hear in particular. So let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. And I'll pull the volume down before I do. Here we go. There we go. So that right there is literally just plugins. Just like, that's pretty spanky. So, it's just kind of like, holy cow. So thanks, Chris. So it's basically you bring in whatever Celestion cabinet and speaker you want, and then you figure out which mic you want, and there's some other groovy stuff in there, but it's just like it allows you to just kind of, because, the great thing about the speaker cabinet, because here's the thing. Let's talk vintage for a moment. We're 2 hours. You guys are rock stars. One of the missions that I'm on, and buying this particular amp here, is that thank you, Rick. Hang on a second. I'll give it a little love here, and then I got to scroll back up. Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Look forward to it. Hang on a second. Where was I? Yes, the jet pedal is supposed to be arriving any day, and I'm super excited. Oh, awesome. Hang on. There we go. Yes, those are supposed to be really cool. And that's a whole other conversation, the mono stereo thing. So yes, amen. I received that. Thank you, my dear friend. Look at this. You guys are awesome. Tell me about it. Okay, so thank you, my man. Okay, so let me, hang on a second. I kind of feel you were talking about with communication, but a different thread. Send. Ooh. Uh, Sorry to hear that. That seems strange, and not normal. That's follow up. How about that? And pray. Um, so yeah, it was just strange. I probably shouldn't have said it, but at the same time, the this is one of the interesting things is that we all have people that we don't reply to our inbox. So it's a 360 kind of thing. So awesome. Okay, so here's the thing: is that the sounds inside. Love you too, man. The sounds that are inside the box. There's more processing power inside my Mac than there is inside my fill in the blank modeler. So as we think about that gets smaller, and companies like Universal Audio are already building amp top boxes, thinking about how they can bring their plugins to the stage. Like 5 years from now, that modeling universe is going to look very different. Is it going to be a box, or is it going to be a computer that you're then leveraging with some sort of off computer processing to be able to utilize? And the great thing about the Universal Audio stuff is, and this is kind of one of the limitations that I ran into with the Gig Performer, was at a certain point you maximize how much processing you can do in your computer and how much processing you can do in something like Universal Audio Apollo 8, which is my interface. So you got to start to load balance. So the idea is having enough resources at both ends so you can kind of manage that, is kind of the name of the game. That said, the sounds and the reverbs, like the compression, that DBX compressor, just like the sound of that, because then you kind of begin to go Stevie Ray, because to me, it sounds like that's Stevie Light is what that is, but I'm hearing all those Stevie Ray recordings kind of going, 160 compressor I think was in there. I think they were using some of the Lexicon 224 reverb in there, because I can hear that now. And I was like, and that, it was basically a bass dude from the folks at Brainworks / Plugin Alliance. It's basically a basement amplifier, which is kind of really the kissing cousin of the Fender amplifiers and the early Marshall amplifiers, and kind of in some ways all the amplifiers that have kind of come out of that Fender inspired thing. That's they started out of this thing. I think we talked about it a little bit the last time. So the idea of having that being completely mobile and being able to take it anywhere with you and having all those classic studio tones, it's interesting. Now, you want to obviously be aware of the fact that if you introduce, like some giant studio reverb inside some sort of high school auditorium that you roll in at 6 a.m. and roll out at 3 p.m., you obviously want to make sure that we find that right mix in the thing. But, it's not any really different than having a timeline, except for the fact that those reverbs sound so amazing. I really kind of lost my mind. Okay, let's see. We're at the 2-hour mark here, but I do want to, and the unfortunate part is the comments don't spill over. There we go. Oh, ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh, there we go. The new Epiphone Prophecy series looks good. Looks great. Sorry. 24 frets on a Les Paul Explorer Flying V and SG. Fishman Fluence. What? Yeah. Wait a second. Oh, it's got... Oh. Wait a second. Hold on. Oh, no. Oh, I see. Oh, hang on. How about I go over to Safari? No, hang on. No, oh, hold on. Ooh, can I do this? There we go. Hey, look at that. I can pull in chat from Facebook. All right. Let me not reveal my stream key to the entire world. Actually, it gets reset every time anyway. Oh, well, I'm just going to expand this here. And if you're on a mobile device, it probably looks like dog meat. Let me just get in here. Okay, good. Hey, I can bring in your comments. I have not heard about the Epiphone prophecy, and I'm kind of like, that's kind of groovy. All right. All right. Hey, Brett, thanks. My book covers a lot of that stuff. It's like you're reading and teaching it, though. I go through beginner, then intermediate, how to get your first next guitar. Everything I wish someone had taught me when I started. That's great. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Mike Fisher, what's going on, Mike? I got the FM3, and it's noticeably killer. Yeah, and I have to stay with things that I know and have good value too if I sell. That's absolutely true, because I usually acquire things after I sell something else to get not too crazy on gear. First of all, that. So I described kind of the three different types of players, but I don't think I ever got to you, which is the smart buyer, which is like, hey, you know what? I'm not buying the next piece of gear until I've gotten all the use out of the one that I've got. I've sold it. This is my budget. I'm either going to save or now I'm going to look at what I can buy and I'm going to make a smart decision. It's not calculating. It's smart. That I make emotional decisions with some smarts involved. That is to say, I have a lot of experience buying gear. I have a lot of experience in know when to sniff out a fraud. But this guy on eBay is like, if he could have burned me, and he wasn't purposely trying to sell this Mark IIc, it was a Mark IIIc that it was just a Mark III, early Mark III he was trying to sell as a Mark IIc plus, but it wasn't. And the thing is, there really wasn't a way, other than the fact that he had published the serial number in there. And I happened to just kind of go after I bought the thing, idiot. It's like, why don't I go do Mesa Boogie serial numbers? Now here's the interesting thing is, if like I hadn't done that, that amp would be coming here. I'd be excited. I just bought a Mark II C plus, and then at some point somebody would have been like, "You imbecile! That's not a Mark II C plus." And you've done all these demos raving about your amp, and it's really a Mark III. I would have been like, "Idiot!" Oh, so it kind of all favor. It kind of worked out okay, but it didn't quite work out the way I had initially planned. All right. The point being is that being methodical, once you kind of go, okay, this is what it is, then again, looking at all the places you can go, looking, at the price points, what, and I'm gonna share this about Craigslist because it's a good thing. Aww. Oh. I'm glad you got your money back. I'm sorry that you didn't get your pedal back. That's unfortunate. So here's the thing. Once you're in that kind of like, I am the non-emotional buyer. I know what I'm getting. Go out onto Reverb, take a look at, on that page where, it's a landing page basically. You can see what comps are for, and you really look at the ups and the downs. See, is this particular piece of gear, if it's used, is it in the up cycle, is it the down cycle? And then to the right of that, there'll be a little grid where it actually kind of gives you the specific purchase prices and the intervals of those purchases, because that tells you how hot the market actually is. So let's say it was for, guitar strings. There would be purchase on a daily basis. But when, you've got something like the Klon or you've got something like this OD9, you begin to kind of go, all right, the prices, they're here. What are people actually paying? And when you begin to put things in that lens, and especially when you're willing to take your time, just kind of go, I know what I'm going to pay for it. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm just going to go there. There's enough vintage folks on here that you can appreciate it. So I'm just going to tell you guys, I'm going to make a video about, all right, I listen to the Holy Spirit. I'm going to go in, it's a video about some really, really cool vintage effects. So this, I have kind of just behind my headstock there, I've got there was a period of time that I really kind of collected really heavily into the Vox and Crybaby wah-wahs. I've probably got, to the best of my knowledge, the deepest collection of vintage Vox and Crybaby pedals. So this was a pedal that had eluded me. Now there are two versions of the Clyde McCoy wah. The one that's the quote unquote signature, that if you go on to Reverb, you can find a bunch of them. Like, and this is a 1960. I should know this. 69, I think, was the Clyde. 7, 8, 9. No, 9. Yeah, 9. Okay. The reason I say that, I should have known this. So basically, at one point or another, Thomas Organ bought Vox. And basically, these pedals were made by an outfit in Italy called Gen, and it was these two guys' names put together, as I recall. And so down at the bottom, made in Italy. So the Clyde picture wah, Clyde McCoy, was actually a trumpet player, and I think somehow he used a mute and kind of. So like somehow Clyde McCoy became the unicorn symbol of wah-wahs. But the common one, and I got the signature one I got when I was still studying with Joe Satriani. So this would have been 1981 at Subway Guitars in Berkeley. Then I bought it for like $100, and it's like a $1,400 wah-wah. So the thing is, all the other ones on Craigslist are like $1,400, $1,500, and so and this one was 15-ish, something like that. But the thing is that this was and is the only picture that's on the market right now. And again, that's going to Reverb, Craigslist, because there's some ways that you can actually search Craigslist nationwide, eBay, and I know some places in the UK that I can go to, and there just isn't a picture wah. And that's one of the reasons why I never actually had one. And because again the tax year was closing out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to check that box, and I'm going to write that off against my taxes. But the seller wanted X amount, and I was like, you know what? I'm looking at the prices. I'm looking at the fact that there's 10 of these on the market right now, and they're all sitting there. It's not like I'm breaking this guy's arm to sell it to me, but I'm like, you know what? Will you take X amount? And I think I offered him like $1,000, and I think he took 12 for it. But which is a ridiculous amount of money to spend for a wah-wah. So I understand, but the thing is I'm going to use this. So, because getting back to the gem, the gem thing is like, there are a number of people that will never actually play through a Clyde McCoy wah. So what does it sound like? So the thing is providing some public service about here's the original Clyde, and the Dunlop guys, when they went to make the Clyde McCoy wah, they actually borrowed my signature wah when they were in the process of making that pedal. So there is a certain amount of by continuing to add to that collection. I'm actually you can search the. It's not Crybaby movie. It's a movie that Dunlop made. It's got 3 parts. You can find it on YouTube, and I actually have some of them linked on my personal YouTube page, I think, and if not, I will. But basically, in that movie, you've got Eddie Van Halen, Slash, Kirk Hammett, Del Casher, and me. What? I was like, when they were finally done, I was like, you mean you didn't edit me out? And it's because I've spent all this time collecting it. So I was their resident collector of the pedals. And there's a scene kind of towards the end of the movie where I've got all these pedals, and I'm kind of talking about the different ones and the different inductors and whatnot. So the interesting thing is that there is, for those of us, we're moving into a place where there's a thing called part drift that happens in these pedals. So first of all, and I'm going a little bit down the vintage rabbit trail, but bear with me because, if at some point you go to buy a vintage amplifier, you go to buy a vintage speaker cabinet, it's just kind of understood that at a certain point, Some of the stuff wears out, gets blown, blows up, gets thieved to put into another amp or something that they can sell for more money, and then they can kind of go, oh, it's all original, or so, and then they sell it to somebody as being original, but it's not. So by the time a vintage piece of gear changes hands 5 times, at some point or another, there's a possibility that there's been some shystery going on. I actually used the word. I hope I didn't offend anybody, but that word has a particular vintage vibe to it. So the point being is that over time the parts drift. But the even crazier thing is back in the 60s, they were like whatever part they could get that had the right value, they just threw in there. They weren't like, making things to an exact, we need only this particular, blah, 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 this and that. It's not like they needed the exact sharp chip that you've got in the quad core, the Cortex. They kind of used whatever they could get and they stuck it in there. And between that and part drift, ultimately some of these things fail, and you have to trust a guy who I absolutely trust, like Analog Mike, who knows those circuits better than I ever will, to bring it back to quote unquote the place where it's right. The thing is, there's a handful of Analog Mics, and as they continue, at some point he will decide he wants to go drive Porsches instead of suck solder. And the ability to document these things as close to their original state is actually important. That vintage AC30, when you have it dialed at the right spot, you're like, there's the sound. You're just like, oh snap. And there's a certain amount. It's like, all right, there's the storybook version. Is it really that good? And I was like, oh, there it is. And the thing about that cabinet is, like, a buddy of mine has some old Marshalls, and ironically, the 69 Plexi doesn't sound as good as a small box 71, which is, instead of having the Plexi front, it's got a metal front, but it's basically the same amp. And I plugged that into that cabinet the night that I unpacked it, and I was like, there's the sound. Ironically, the sound of that and the AC30 are actually very close. But like, you can hear the differences, but at the same time, you're kind of like, it's a vibe. But the whole point is that the great thing about this vintage gear is that there is a vibe. It's not kind of like, but at the same time, when it stops being, if the parts drift too far away from the spec, of which there wasn't a quote unquote true spec to begin with, but this is kind of the same thing if you pick up 2 Strats. I have had many Fenders, and ironically, I've had 2 sets of Jazzmasters, but never with Strats. But I've had 2 sets of Jazzmasters that they actually sounded pretty darn identical. That's extremely rare in guitars, and I've had lots of. Traditionally, when I have a guitar, I have a hot swappable backup. I'm digressing here a little bit, but in any case, hold on. Let me just make sure I haven't lost everybody here. Yes. So, and that's the thing is it's classic. Oh, thank you, my man. All right, Alan, I hope you have a good slumber. And I got stuff I got to do too. Hang on a second. Let me jump over here into the Book of Face. Nope, that's the wrong. There we go. I've seen the Wah Wah movie. There we go. Shane, Keith Williams. Oh, interesting. Hang on. Let me bring this in to there. Let's do that. There we go. Shane, Keith Williams has a good series of videos on buying and selling gear. It's 5 Watt World YouTube channel. He's really good. And I have seen the Wah Wah movie. You're a constant source of joy and support. I got to send you your... Oh, I almost said what it was, your little gift that I can't tell you about. All right, folks, 8:21, 2 hours and 20 minutes. It is time. Oh, right, we had a kind of a false start. So I'm looking at this live. 2 hours and 42 seconds and counting. Want to thank you for hanging out. This has been a lot of fun. I hope it has been valuable. Let me do a brief recap. I keep coming back to this point. I don't get much further. Decide what kind of buyer you are. Driven by emotion, where I want it now, Just know that there are mistakes that happen. The kind of like, I know what I want. I'm emotional about it, but I know that I'm emotional about it, and I know I'm a little bit more emotional than I should be. But yeah, no, Rick, we're not going to miss praying. But thank you, I appreciate that. And then the calm, cool hand Luke, kind of like, you know what? I'm going to sell the gear that I've got, and when I go to buy the gear that I'm going to get, I know exactly what I want. I know what I'm going to pay, and this is what it is. And if I need to pay more, it's not an emotional decision. I wish I were that guy. I'm not. But I also don't make stupid gear decisions. And again, on this eBay amp, I fortunately had some buyer protection, and I knew that. But they're going to sit on my money for a minute, and that never feels good. And it was a really, really great lesson in humility. Just kind of go, you got excited, and your desire to not, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And that right there. Moral of the story is that when you're buying gear, and if the fear of missing out is driving your purchase, you are headed towards peril. Doesn't mean it's not going to turn out well, but it's just like it's usually when like where every other it's the same thing if you said you watch your buddies like, well, aren't you going to double check the serial number and the year and all of that? It's like, but it's the only one. It's just like, yeah, well, Doppler's an idiot. All right, see a couple more things coming in here. All right, so here's the other part of this. Then go out again if it's used, Reverb, eBay, Craigslist, Guitar Center used section. I find those are all really good sources to give me a really good pulse of the stuff that's out there if it's used. If it's new, generally Sweetwater's the first place I'm going to go. And or my local Guitar Center. When you can actually walk in there because you can actually play it, which is always nice. Then ultimately, when it comes to the point of selling it, clean it up and shoot it nicely. This is the mistake that I see people do on Craigslist all day long. It's like, it's filthy. First of all, I actually appreciate the fact that when I see a piece of gear that looks disgusting, I'm like, I don't want that because it's just been, it means that Pigpen, out of the Snoopy characters, right? Pigpen owned that guitar. It's been sweat on. It's been, who knows, but you don't want that guitar. You want the guitar, Jem. You want the guitar that it looks like somebody like Jem owned. Like if you look at Jem's guitars, they're always clean. They always look like they've been taken care of because he cares about his instruments. You do not want to buy a guitar from somebody that doesn't care. So then you start looking at the photos, where are the scratches? Does it look like an accidental scratch or a careless scratch? You look at the Tolex. Does it look like they just dragged it in and out of the back of their truck? Because if they did, it means they left it out maybe one night under a tarp. They just didn't care. You don't want to buy gear that was used and abused by somebody that doesn't care. You want to buy gear that from somebody that cared as much or more about the gear than you do. Because it means that when you go to resell that gear, it will hold its value ideally. And again, if you make non-emotional purchases, generally you make really smart purchases. And even if you decide to overpay for something, which actually is okay sometimes. Like if you're like, you know what? I shouldn't buy this particular fill in the blank brand because I saw that finish. I went home. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I really love the guitar, the way the guitar plays, but I'm just so enamored with the finish of that guitar. I'm going to pay X dollars amount more for that guitar with that finish. And mind you, you can never hear a finish in a mix. That'll be the quote of the night. You can never hear the finish in the mix. But there are times that we just kind of, we want to go there. And, for example, that particular cabinet, there is a very finite number of them. Like, there were 4 on the market when I went to get that one. And I got the best cabinet for the best price. And I took my time. And I also got the best seller. But the thing is, that's something I'm going to keep, and it's going to be something that is going to have value because we're going to there will be IRs based on that cabinet, and other people will be able to benefit from that. So that's, which I guess kind of gets us to like, why is he buying this? You bet there's going to be IRs for that cabinet, and you can bet there's going to be profiles of that amp. And so at that point, it becomes something. First of all, it becomes part of a micro business, but more importantly, it also becomes something that I can share. Because here's the deal: is that amp dialed at the sweet spot means that when you plug it into your Kemper or Quad Cortex or whatever the heck it's going to be, you've got a sound that is just like, there it is. That is the sound. It's not like, because here's the thing, there's a company. Their profiles are so bad, and they're huge, huge. I'm not going to mention the name, but I'm like, every time I hear the sounds and they have some demos, I'm like, oh. It's like, don't have somebody tone deaf dial in your settings and then go, that's great, profile that. Like, I can't even I can't say the words that came to mind, but basically, I think a friend of mine close to me would say, dung in a sack is still dung in a sack. Just because it's a great amp, if you got somebody that doesn't have ears dialing it in, doesn't mean you're going to end up with a usable profile. The sounds are so bad, it's embarrassing. Including one of the amps that I'm gunning for, and I was like, I've got to have one. My buddy Mason has one, so I can borrow that. But the point being is like, the deal is to get that amp in the zone and then profile it properly, and then lots of people can actually have that sound. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. Okay. Ditto. Can't wait. Thank you. Bruce, thank you so much. That's a great, I will. It depends on who they are. I think, the interesting thing is that I've had a couple interactions with people that are just starting out. And I think if I had a student that came to me and didn't really know anything about gear, and they're like, hey, I want to kind of get started, I'd probably say go buy a DD7 and a Tube Screamer, a Wah-Wah, and then go on Reverb and buy a Bogner Red, kind of as they kind of go through it. And that's what's so funny is I guess I just made my starter video, didn't I? Four great beginning pedals that you can't go wrong with, because and to that add an MXR Dynacomp, because there you've got all the food groups that you really kind of want to have. The Bogner Red is not necessarily a starter pedal, other than the fact it is a phenomenal distortion pedal. Tube Screamer's affordable. DD7 is a great delay. It's gotten a bad rap from the Worship guys. It's a great delay, just incredibly full featured. It's built-in tap tempo on a single small format pedal, just great sounding. But yeah, and so the thing is about the Pod Go, which I absolutely love, but you kind of have to understand signal chain, right? You kind of have to understand parameters. You have to understand modeling. It's all, and I was starting to say it depends on how old they are, but honestly, the idea of sitting there, here's your pedals, just learn to make some sounds with pedals and go, that's cool. I really don't like having to step on 3 pedals in some strange order to get the sounds that I want to change. Then at that point, you're talking about a switcher, or at that point, you're like, hey, check out a modular, because it's got all that stuff there together. That is a great question, by the way, Jim. And, then you get into HX Stomp, which is another great question. But then you've got like, well, how do you control that stuff? Do you set up, how do you control random access from one patch to another? How do you control having, a limited number of foot switches on there, what you assign them to, and what's an assignment? Like what's a scene? And all of a sudden, what's a snapshot? It's It is a and you said Helix, but I thought HX Stomp would be a logical place. Um, it's an interesting thing. Great question. Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing: is fortunately, it's got some love bites on it. So that's actually kind of one of the good things about buying something that's a little bit used is that it's actually kind of when I got the ES, there isn't a scratch on it. I was like, well, and as I'm putting it in the van in the guitar case, I'm like, well, I wonder how long it's going to take and what it is that I'm going to do on it because invariably it's going to happen right here. It's going to be hitting this drawer that pulls out here, or it's going to be crowning the headstock on something there, or yeah. So it's pretty funny. Let's see. There you go. Well, so we're going to put you up on the Worship Guitar Player, Hall of Fame. The proud user of the DD7. So it's a great pedal, built-in tap tempo. Like it sounds great. It's just but like the diehard word DD5, DD7, just like please, but they all do have their own character, and so I'm not going to be totally snooty. I do understand that there is a particular vibe that each of these pedals has, and that's part of the other reason I want to kind of document some of the stuff. Like the Memory Man has got kind of a ping to it when the echo happens. It's a particularly unique thing. So it's interesting. All right. First of all, I just want to remind everybody this is NAMM week, and we've got this great thing that we're doing with Lincoln, and it is. I will warn you, it's not actually a live thing, but it goes live at 10 a.m. on Friday, the 22nd Pacific time, and to sign up for that. And for all the different NAMM things, let's see if I can get that to come back again. There we go. So you basically, we're hosting the Worship Musician Chapel, and that again is at 10 a.m. We're also doing NAMM Technology. Jem, you should check this out. And actually, anybody that plays at church should check this out. So on Friday at 2:40. It's a panel that I'm hosting that's got Christian from Multitracks, Chris Griffin from Church of the Highlands, and Todd Elliott from Philo. And folks, please tell your church folks. Philo is basically first in the last out conference for technical creatives, and these guys. I edited this thing together. It's basically my questions or comments appearing in text, and then these guys share their infinite wisdom. It's really, really, really good stuff. And it's basically about the post-COVID shift and how it's impacted technology and creativity about how we approach doing things. And they just have some great comments. And everybody can go to NAMM for free. And so basically the directions are down there. And then we will be sharing that on social media again tomorrow. So there we go. DS1 and the Metal Zone. Let's see. Hang on. Let me get rid of this guy right here. That wasn't what I wanted to get rid of. There we go. The Metal Zone. All right. So, with that said, it's time for prayer. Lord, we just give thanks for you. We give thanks for living at a time where the majority of us are not persecuted for our faith, Lord, where we have the freedom to worship you openly, freedom to declare you as our Savior openly. And so, Lord, I just pray in this time that people are questioning lots of things. People are not sure of what the year holds. I just pray that you would comfort them in the moments of need and questioning. And Lord, I just pray that as you always are, you would just be ever present with people, and they would be reminded that you hear them. People desperately need to feel heard, and they're looking in all the wrong places. So Lord, I just give thanks that we have this community of believers, that we can come together, and that we have the opportunity to comfort each other, and fellowship, and more importantly, friendship. And we get a chance to do it around our love of music and guitar and the gear, and you delight in the things that bring us joy, and music and gear bring us joy, and so we're thankful to have a God, to serve a God who delights in the things that delight us. because you put that in us. So we give thanks. We give thanks for joy, Lord. I just pray a spirit of joy on everybody that's here. I pray a spirit of joy on the world that we live in, and I pray a spirit of unity. And we ask all of this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. All right, folks, this has been awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Next week, it's going to be kind of a NAMM/New Gear recap. I've already got some early favorites. One in particular, there's a Telecaster, the Lux Telecaster, I think is what it's called, that is phenomenal. I haven't played it, but it really looks gorgeous. The Mark Lettieri PRS, that's another piece that looks great. And much more. Much love, and God bless. See you next week. Cheers.